Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Lepswich, and I'm a junior here at Montrose. Some may remember me when I joined Montrose in 9th grade, and for those who don't know me, because my high school time has been very segmented, let me share a little about my story, because the girl you see standing here today only resembles the girl I used to be. Being able to coordinate my body exactly the way I needed became very natural to me. Riding a bike, climbing trees, playing sports and activities were always easy for me to learn. I was the kid who immediately had to be active after sitting in school all day. I would spend hours outside until they called in for dinner. Then, once I was able to join competitive teams, playing sports is what I lived for. My dedication on improving my skills and speed were not selfishly motivated, rather, I always wanted to be better for my team. Becoming part of the Montrose community in the fall of 2013 allowed me to continue to play the sports I loved while representing the school I was so excited to be a part of. During my freshman year, I played for the varsity soccer and lacrosse teams. You may have heard the phrase student athlete, but if I'm being entirely honest with you, I was more of an athlete student. While I did okay in my classes, I didn't give schoolwork my first priority. I looked at my academics more of a means to an end. I did just enough to be able to play sports, keep my parents and teachers off my back. Beyond that, I met great friends and was having the time of my life acclimating to high school. I was truly happy. Then, on September 10th, 2014, a perfect sunny day, life as I knew it would change. I was now a sophomore, back playing varsity soccer. The sun was shining, the air was crisp, and my grandparents came to support me as they did so often. I took the field with my team, and just after the start of the second half, a direct kick was called against Montrose on our end of the field. As a defender, I was accustomed to lining up on the wall, shoulder to shoulder with two of my teammates, and watching the referee pace out 10 yards. However, this time would be extremely different. This would be my last wall. As the opponent struck the ball, it shot up and connected directly with the right side of my head, right between my eye and my ear, twisting my neck severely. Everything faded. The force of the ball knocked me hard to the ground, and I slammed the left side of my head on the turf, leaving my brain ping-ponging within my skull. The car ride home was torture. I lay across 3 seats, writhing with nausea, dizziness, and a headache. As an athlete, I had suffered concussions previously. I even suffered a serious concussion in the fall of my freshman year, during the last game of the season. I was acquainted with the protocols of complete brain rest, which meant no reading and no TV or electronic devices for a period of time until I was symptom-free. I stand here today, embarrassed to say, I was definitely one of those people who thought, it's just a concussion. Not realizing that a blow to the head can lead to a traumatic brain injury that causes brain dysfunction. After a few days, the swelling and bruise no longer appeared on my face. But upon re-entry to school a week later, I knew something was very different. Scared, I didn't say anything. I attempted to return to my team a little over 2 weeks later. First practice back, I was a completely different athlete, and some of you actually may remember this. I could no longer dribble in and out of cones easily. I started towing the ball and not keeping it within my control. I would even sometimes completely swing and miss the ball when trying to clear it. The rest of the season was long and frustrating. My body was failing me, not doing what I knew it could do. No matter how hard I focused, I saw no improvement. I didn't recognize the soccer player I had become, from our starter to spending the rest of the season on the bench. I honestly didn't know what was happening to me. Fear left me that I wanted to be entirely honest about my symptoms. I knew if I were, I'd risk losing the ability to take any field again. I can appreciate now how disturbing that may sound, where back then, my identity was based on being an athlete. The field is where I was most comfortable and confident. Ignorance had me attempt to power through the brain injury, but it did not take my parents long to figure out that I not only wasn't improving, but I was slipping away entirely. Desperate to understand what was going on, my parents brought me back to my pediatrician who recommended extensive neurological testing, which identified that I was suffering from post-concussion syndrome, a condition when your symptoms linger for several months after concussion. My personality changed, with extremes ranging from irritability to excessively emotional. My grades, they dropped beyond anything I'd ever experienced, and the physical symptoms had taken over my life. To put things in perspective, let me share an example. When you stub your toe, you immediately snap and become irritable, because instantly the pain signals your brain to let you know that you're suffering. When you're suffering from a brain injury, any of these symptoms you see here on the screen send the same signal to your brain. But the difference is you're experiencing all these symptoms at any given moment. Your brain becomes so overstimulated that the snapping reaction is on a continuous loop. Your only resource is to isolate yourself in a dark, quiet room, and even then, only some of the symptoms are alleviated. By late spring, I was not improving. The concussion clinic that had been monitoring me monthly thought that I had suffered an eye injury, which was preventing my recovery. But the exam was negative, and that doctor came to the conclusion that there was nothing wrong with me, and that I should just push through the symptoms, try to get back to my normal self. Well, less than a week after that visit, I had my permit. I was driving with my mom in an attempt to get back to normal, as the doctor ordered. When my right side began to tremor, I blinked out, causing my foot to slide from the gas pedal, and the car veered off the right side of the road. My mom grabbed the wheel and started calling my name to bring me back. When she asked me what had happened, I honestly couldn't tell her because I had no idea. Don't worry, I have not gotten behind the wheel of a car since that day. I struggled, but somehow managed to complete my sophomore year. My parents knew if they didn't get to the bottom of this, I would not return for my junior year. By this point, sports were the last thing from my mind. As the months ticked by, I was beginning to wonder if regaining neurological function was ever going to become a reality. During this time, my world was at a constant spin to the right. I couldn't balance, couldn't get my grounding. When I walked, my right leg would either drag or sway outward. My headaches were insane. On a scale of 1 out of 10, 10 being the worst, they were a 7 on a good day and a 10 on most days. My tremors increased. Talking became very difficult for me. I was stuttering and slurring words, and it took me a while to form sentences. So whoever was communicating with me had to be extremely patient. Everything from the waist down was restless. I felt so uncomfortable in my own skin. The right side of my body was weak and hard to control. Any movement left me nauseous and on the verge of vomiting. I had trouble falling asleep and never could stay asleep. I'd wake up in the middle of the night with cold sweats and my room spinning. I now felt myself slipping away. To best explain how the right side of my body felt, do you know how it feels when you're sick and you feel super weak? You attempt to close your hand to make a fist, and it takes all of your energy, but you just can't squeeze it tight. That is what it felt like losing function in my right arm and leg. I was unable to hold a glass and fill it up with water, unable to use a knife and fork, and unable to grasp a pen. Not because I lost strength in my muscles, but because my brain was no longer informing the right side of my body how to function. If you imagine a drawbridge connecting the left side of your brain to control the right side of your body, my drawbridge remained open. Therefore, information had to skip from one side to the other. Then when it landed, the message was mismatched, causing dysfunction within my body. My declining health had to seek another opinion with the neurologist. However, during our 2 visits, this doctor, we waited close to 2 hours to be seen each time. He spent about 20 minutes with me and my parents. His curt and dismissive demeanor was sadly disappointing. The worst was the last visit. He evidently was in a hurry and rushed through the visit. Then, as my mother was helping me walk down the hall to the elevator, he rushed right past us. Never hesitated once to help or even hold the elevator. In between the 2 visits, he referred me to a speech, occupational, and physical therapy. The only issue was, after the evaluations, my symptoms worsened. The lowest point of this journey came when the speech therapist stated that in her 6 years of seeing patients, she had never seen someone who tested as poorly as I did. Therefore, she came to the conclusion that I was exaggerating my symptoms. Hearing this was devastating. I lost it right there in the room. I started bawling my eyes out. And for those who really know me, I never cry. My parents immediately canceled future appointments with her and attempted to explain to me that she didn't have the experience with my type of brain injury, and therefore they didn't want her irresponsible statement to bring me down. Even though I knew my parents were protecting me, and they had a point, this moment crushed me. To this day, it still kills me and hurts to think about. In the end, when the MRI scans of my brain didn't show the injury, this neurologist, during the rushed 2nd visit, suggested I work with the doctor to talk through my experience. The isolation and lack of answers left me frustrated and confused. My parents felt strongly that this was not something I was going to talk my way out of. and were determined to find an answer. So they sought a third referral, this time with a functional neurologist. And thankfully, this was the last referral. Simply scheduling the appointment at Higher Pro Performance, my mother knew this experience was going to be different. Mary, the coordinator, was so kind and patient as my mom desperately shared my story. The day came, and although my parents were optimistic, I was not. After 10 months, I was deeply discouraged and felt hopeless. I walked in, prepared to wait the obligatory hour, and was pleasantly surprised when we were escorted into Dr. Carlson's office on time. Dr. Carlson listened for the first 20 to 30 minutes, taking notes and not interrupting me once. She understood that my brain was injured and that I couldn't communicate at a normal pace. My exam lasted close to 2 hours. This was the first time I spent more time with the neurologist than in their waiting room. During our next visit, Dr. Carlson thoroughly discussed the results of my exam. She used models, pictures, and numerous handouts to not only explain, but show us exactly what had happened and what continued to be going on inside my brain. This is extremely helpful considering I couldn't process information very clearly. She broke down the complexities of the brain and how the different parts of the brain intertwined with one another, as well as the multifaceted aspects of my brain injury based on the primary impact of the ball and the secondary impact of hitting my head on the turf. For the first time in almost a year, my parents not only understood what had happened, we had a peace come over us. We canceled all other appointments and began an intensive rehabilitation program that focused on neurological, physical, and metabolic recovery. That meant I was seen as often 2 times per day, 5 days a week. It was without a doubt a burden for me and my entire family. But we didn't care, because we trusted Dr. Carlson and the team, and we were convinced they were going to help me. In addition to therapy I received in the office, I had a home program as well, which was crucial to my progress. I have 3 videos of me doing some of my exercises. The first video is from August 2015, my first home rehabilitation. Because the message from my left side of my brain was not reaching the right side of my body, I worked on basic coordinated movements, like marching in place while saying what arms and legs were moving.
All right, get your focus. What do you want to do? You want to say right arm, left arm, or do you want to do concussive? Like, sure. All right, ready? 3 times. Say it.
Up, left, left arm, right leg.
Remember, don't cue yourself with your finger. Look at the spot and think about it.
Right arm, left leg. Left leg, right leg. Right arm, left leg.
Okay, now slowly.
Right arm, left leg.
Okay, take a break.
The next video is from September 2015. I am practicing tongue twisters out loud, reinforcing the control over my vocal cords. You first hear my mom say the line, and then I follow.
I'll say it again. A noisy noise, a noise, an oyster.
A noisy noise,
The last video was taken at Chiropro in October. This video shows progress because when I started with Dr. Carlson, I was unable to smoothly direct my finger to the tip of my nose, even find the tip of my nose with my eyes closed. I'm sitting down because of my poor balance. You'll hear Dr. Carlson tell me to close my eyes, but I forget to. As I was learning to function again, it took me a lot of patience because I constantly need reminders. Lastly, I have stimulation on my right arm while completing this exercise. This reminds the brain signal where the message needs to go to move my arm.
Touch your nose. Yeah. Close your eyes. Remember where your nose was in the mirror. Remember where it was in the mirror? Mm-hmm. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. Remember, just remember, right now you're picturing your beautiful picture in the mirror. And touch your nose. Picture where your nose was in the mirror. Back out. Picture yourself in the mirror. Touch your nose. Back out. Picture your nose in the mirror. Touch your nose. Awesome. Open up your eyes.
I had to remove all sugar, including sugar and all carbs from my diet. That's right, no more pizza, cookies, coffee, none of it. Because sugar is poison to a person recovering from brain injury. Consuming sugar during my treatment would have been detrimental, directly impacting my progress. My diet became very high protein, with a minimum of 100 grams per day, along with fruits, vegetables, and lots of water. Regaining brain functionality was the most challenging thing I've ever done, but this program is what changed everything for me. It's important to point out that no two brain injuries are alike. My program is specialized to the parts of my brain that were injured. I suffered an injury to the cerebellum, which controls movement, thoughts, emotions, learning, and circulation. In addition, I dislodged the crystals in my ear canal, which caused dizziness, until the condition was cleared just a few weeks ago on March 28th. My injury left me with dysautonomia, which is a condition of the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic system controls the automatic functions of the body that we don't consciously think about. For example, heart rate, blood pressure, pupils, and body temperature control. This caused sensory mismatch within my body, causing numerous secondary symptoms. While working on my rehabilitation, I was watched very closely to ensure I did not overstimulate my brain. Overstimulation leads to symptoms within my body, such as tremors, stuttering, and others that's easily seen. But in addition, overstimulation affected my blood pressure, heart rate, body temperature that cannot be seen. Examples to explain what was happening with my body: my right hand and arm would go super cold, my left would get hot, or my heart would race as if I were running, but I was only sitting in a chair. Or moving from one place to another, I could get lightheaded to the point of feeling pain. Due to the dramatic fluctuation in my heart, I used to wear a heart monitor all day, every day. The monitor allows me to know how hard my heart is working. Then I can slow down or stop until my body and brain can get acclimated. Luckily, I am improving and only wear it during physical activity now. There are no words to describe how grateful I am to the chiro team. Their passion, sacrifice, and patience towards me and my family just means the world to us. Right now, I am focused on learning how to move my lower body without looking, and knowing my left from my right. I'm a 17-year-old girl, less than 6 months away, and I still have a difficult time knowing my left from my right without looking at them. For example, it's normal to walk down a hallway, gazing ahead or talking with a friend. When I returned to school, I couldn't do that. I needed to look at my feet to remind the brain signal how my body was to function. That is why I don't turn just in classes when there are a lot of people in the hallway, and why I have to hold the railing going up and down the stairs. Because if I do, without looking at my feet, I will miss a step and fall. My recovery is still playing out, but I'm so appreciative for everything they have done for me. I don't like directly reading a slide, but here are a few facts that I wanted to share, because what remains difficult for me is explaining the injury and symptoms because they cannot be seen. What has helped me tremendously is talking with others who have suffered brain injuries and knowing that I'm not alone. Did you know that 1.6 million to 3.8 million concussions occur each year? Fewer than 10% of sport-related concussions involve loss of consciousness. Soccer is the most common sport with concussion risk for females, estimated with a 50% chance. 47% of athletes do not report feeling any symptoms after a concussion blow. Now, this one goes out for Mrs. Lombardo because apparently physics is beyond the classroom. The impact speed of a professional boxer's punch is equivalent to 20 miles per hour. The impact speed of a stationary football player being hit is equivalent to 25 miles per hour. The impact speed of a soccer ball being headed is equivalent to 70 miles per hour. Just curious, how many people have actually headed a ball in the game? That's a lot. These facts aren't meant to scare anyone, but there is a reason why concussions and TBIs are being discussed and researched so intently now. The world is learning that a blow to the head is never just a concussion. How did I get through the last 18 months? That is simple, faith. Now, my definition of faith may not be exactly what Mrs. Young teaches in 9th and 10th grade theology, but this is what it means to me. The F in faith stands for family. I could not have survived without my family. And I now extend the definition to friends who cared so much they became family. I watched my parents and sister make sacrifices as they adapted to caring for me 24 hours a day, because I couldn't be left alone, because I couldn't care for myself. My injury changed the dynamics of our family, and oddly enough, we are a lot closer now having gone through this. Then once I was able to return to school, the Montrose family jumped in and helped. It's To my classmates and teachers, especially Mrs. Elrod, Mrs. Whitlock, and Mrs. Least, thank you for your patience. I would not have gone through my junior year without you. The A in faith stands for acceptance. Acceptance was necessary on many levels. It took me a long time to accept my injury and my circumstances. I was angry, actually very angry. It took a lot of my energy. As soon as I was able to accept this new journey, I was able to understand that along with the injury came a lot of opportunities to love and grow. I want to be honest, some days I still struggle with accepting what has happened. Like when I want to do something my brain just can't handle yet. I find myself disappointed and frustrated. But those days are not nearly as frequent as they used to be, which helps me remember that I'm getting better. The I in faith stands for intent. Intent is being determined to do something. Recovering from this required me to believe, without a doubt, that every aspect of my rehabilitation had intention, that I needed to be fully committed. Intention became more important and more difficult returning to school than even rehab had been. I wanted to get back to school so badly, but it didn't matter how much I wanted it. The only thing that mattered was how much I was determined to do it. I'm not the person I used to be. This injury has significantly changed me. As I continue to recover, my intention is now to not let this injury define me and to become the better version of my old self. The T in faith stands for time. When this happened, I was a 15-year-old girl who had been raised with the internet, cell phone, and social media. Patience was not something I was very good at. And remember, at that time, my favorite aspect of school was playing sports and hanging out with my friends. Now I'm a 17-year-old girl who understands time is a gift. It's how we choose to use it that really matters. The opportunity to learn and enhance our brains is truly a gift that we should not take for granted. Saying these words publicly blows my mind, because 18 months ago, I would have never, ever thought like this. Missing that much school on some days may have seemed like the luckiest thing to have ever happened, but to be honest, it was devastating. Having the ability to read, talk, write taken away from me left me feeling like a toddler in a teenage body. I have a newfound respect for everything our brains are responsible for and capable of. I no longer take for granted the value of an education, whether it's the Pythagorean theorem or reading a Charles Dickens novel that contains a literary scheme in every other sentence. I am so grateful for the opportunity to get frustrated with learning a new concept. Lastly, the H in faith stands for help. I found faith through the help of others. I was asked last September if I had a magic wand, what would I wish for? My answer was to graduate with my class. You saw the videos? That goal seemed so unrealistic at the start of my junior year, but here I am. But I'm only here because of the service of so many who have assisted me in obtaining that goal. I still don't know exactly why, but asking for and receiving help is difficult. The only thing I have come up with during this journey is to ask for help requires vulnerability. I used to see vulnerability as a weakness. Now I understand it requires strength. I realize I learned to love my brain only after being forced to. But take it from me, you do not want to lose or decrease your brain's ability in any way. Obviously, if you or if someone you know has concussion, please tell a parent, teacher, coach, or trainer. Do not feel pressure that you have to tough it out, and never, ever think, oh, it's just a concussion, because it is completely not worth the risk. Every brain is different, so everybody's rehab and recovery time is different. You are the only one who truly knows how you feel inside. In addition, think about how often you rest your brain. We only get one brain. It's not like an iPhone where if you drop it and damage your screen, you can get it replaced. Our brains allow us to function, perform daily activities we take for granted. Walking, talking, reading, writing, sleep, eating, digesting food, and the list goes on. The brain is the most complex organ in our bodies. Our brains help us to perceive the world around us. But when something damages it, it can affect our whole body. Do not take it for granted. I stand here alone, but I know I did not get here alone. To everyone who helped me to get to this stage, thank you.